So can we invite Ajahn Tamawat? Is Ajahn Tamawat? Can you lead us through the respect to the Triple Jam before George start?
Arahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Buddhang Bhagavantang Abhivademi Sawakhato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammang Namacchami Supatipanno Bhagavato Sawaka Sangho Sanghang Namami Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Okay, Kong, you continue to.
Thank you, Ajahn.
Yeah.
So George, so nice to see you. Welcome. And I think we have, like what Alice mentioned, this is a very interesting topic. There were so many different types of interpretation or different sects of Buddhism. So I guess your topic today will share with us a bit more about the different sects of Buddhism, Theravada, Mahayana, and Vajirayana. So thank you for sharing the topic. So, and now hand over to you, George, to take us through this topic. There will be some question and answer at the end of your talk. And we look forward to hear from you and share your experience and also helping us to cast some clarity on the different explanation of these different sects of Buddhism. Okay, thank you, Josh. Over to you.
Thank you, Kong. And nice to see everybody over here in this studio. And I'm really happy to be present and be a guest speaker for today's topics of the different school of the Buddhism. I would say that this topic is not in my areas. I really a practitioner, not a scholar, but I really enjoy, when I go to meditate in different regions, different countries, especially in Asian country. I had a really great experience when I was in India for 7 years. I had a chance to emphasize my practice, my meditation practice, over in India for 7 years, beside my my college degree that I went to. So apart from the meditation, I also went to study and have a conversation with a different teacher from different branch of the even Hindu or the Buddhism in north of India, south of India, especially in if you heard about this Saket. The city about it is a spiritual city of the Hinduism and the Buddhism, and also in Varanasi, where I had my meditation teacher. My first meditation teacher, apart from my mom, Mr. Chama, he was my first meditation teacher. So that brought me go deeper and deeper in Buddhism. And then when I think that I can meditate by myself, and when I can teach, so I think that I have to know more about the Pariyatta, the knowledge or the theory of what I have been doing. That the purpose of go up into the area of the theory is really clear out my doubt or what we call it Nivarana, Vicikiccha. That was really clear out my cloud, my dullness even from the meditation. That's how probably like 5 years after that I become going to different part of Asian country, for example, Japan and Korea and Taiwan, to study a different school of the Buddhism theory. And I will share my experience of going to discuss about the different school of the Buddhism where I have been to, for example, India, Japanese, Japan, Korea, and Taiwan. The only one country that I want to go for having a knowledge of different school of the Buddhism is Tibet, which is I got stuck with the pandemic. Actually, it was my plan was to study the theory of the Vajirayana in it's a Tibet Buddhism. Yeah, I already booking a ticket, but because of the pandemic, yeah, it doesn't allow me to go anywhere. So I get stuck, and that was really missed. Otherwise I should have a really clear idea to share you about the Vajirayana Buddhism. But anyway, I have a really concrete idea about of course, my belief, the Theravada, and maybe I touch a little bit on the Vajirayana or Tibet Buddhism. Not 100% clear about the of the Mahayana, but I can compare, because when I study each one of them, I try always to do the comparative study of each one so that I can clear out my mind and which way I have to walk during the meditation. I would like to begin with, it's a belief system of the human being. There's one or two Pali words. It's called Nana Chittang. And Nana Chittang means a different belief, different opinions, different thoughts, or different thinking. Whatever is spinning, whatever is forms, fabrication of the mind is called Chittang. And you, me, or everyone else can have a different Chittang, different thinking, different belief. It's all about the belief system of especially human being. It actually also occur not only in the human being. It occur. The belief system is I believe that it happened. It's there in all beings, including the animals. The other one is the Eka Chittang, which is not existing actually. Eka Chittang means it's only one single thinking that actually not exists. It's your own thinking, but it may not agree by a different person accepting your own opinion. So we are living in the era of Anana Chittang. That was I want to begin today's discussion with. There is one interesting book of Ajahn Puttathasa of Son Mok that really I enjoy. I believe and I believe that if you have a chance to pick up that book and read, you will really enjoy it. The human, the handbook of the human. Ajahn Puttathasa show the concept of the natural religions. he was trying to point out that the human belief, especially in the religion today, it's just like a man-made religion. You know what I mean? We set up the Vinaya. We have a new or different interpretation that may be different from the Buddha word or the Savaka. So that can be, what today call man-made religions. But Ajahn Buddhadasa explained back to what originally the belief of. I think a very good example when he went down to the beach and he observed that there's a lot of crabs crawling on the beach and going down into the holes because the crabs hearing the sound of the water that getting full and coming to the beach. So that sort of belief refer to the natural belief of all beings. Yeah. So this is what I want to begin with, that let you guys think about the belief system of all sentient being that can be natural, And I believe this is a very, very, very deep idea of the enlightened one, the Buddha, for example. The mind has to be really clear out. Even the mind itself is not there to be noticed. So the division of the school, now let's go back to what we're going to discuss today, the different school of the Buddhism. Where there is a society, where there is a community, even where there is a country or the continents, there are only two cause and condition that can divide things. Even physically, part of a different region can be divided with two cause and condition. The first one is inequality of the moral conduct. I refer to Sila, for example. Because we are behaving in different manners, we don't have the equality of the Sila. It is one thing. The second thing, the second cause and condition is inequality of a vision. Or we call it titti. We have a different opinions. We have a different views, different vision. So with these two cause and condition, that's how it divides things in the world into at least two sections, two parts, and eventually become at least two schools in Buddhism. Begin with the Theravada, and it's not only in the Buddhism. It can be happen because of the two different conditions. Can be when it happen, it can communities. The matter is religion or not religions. And I believe the beginning, the origin of the religion has happened, exists in the world is because of these two conditions. Number one, unequal, the difference in behavior of the people, and the different vision of the people. So Now we can scan after 1 year after the Sankiti, or we call it the Sankhayana or Sankiti in Pali or Sanskrit, which is the first convention. First convention means the first Buddhist council that happened in the city of Rajkrut. I was there like more than 5-6 times in the cave. That is because of there are a group of the monks who have a different vision. Imagine when you have a different vision from another people, you will do something different. You will talk something different. So the cause and the condition for the division of anything is first originated in the mind. And then when you want to transfer your thinking, your believing, your opinion into someone else's mind or someone else's brain. That is the branching of the thing that you are believing. So if we investigate how the different schools of the religion of the Buddhism are branching out, it's because of believing, because of the vision, because of the view. And that's how you interpret, you have a new interpretation. Have different. You don't be with the original Vinaya or the disciplinary that the Buddha set up during his lifetime. So soon, 1 year after the first convention, the branching out, the idea of the branching of the Dhamma and the Vinaya began. I think that time we have what we called it Mahasankhika, was considered as the origin of the Mahayana school of the Buddhism. So I just want to review about how the different school of the Buddhism or how different school of the religions are occurring in the era. Yeah. But the point that I want to mention is I want to point it out that it's nothing wrong with how many school of the Buddhism, how many school of the religion we are having. Actually, if we look in the positive vision, we can see this. When the things are getting bigger and bigger, expanding and expanding, branching out, I think that thing is getting stronger and stronger. Imagine what with Mahayana, we don't have Zen, we don't have Vajirayana. I think today we may not have Theravada. Because we have Mahayana, because we have Vajirayana, we have Zen. That's how Theravada is still alive. The branching out of the different schools themselves protecting the authenticity, protecting the original, the thing that has been original. So the more you branching out, the more we are the more we can save the original things. That's what I want to mention at the beginning. And now we can go to the details of a different school. Please allow me to begin with the what I am in, which is Theravada school of the Buddhism. The three levels of the Buddhist teaching are called vehicles because they comprise the teaching and the methods that will carry us to the enlightenment in much the very same way that vehicle can carry us to our destination in everyday life. So the Theravada is the foundation of the Buddhism. I mean, it's the fundamental levels of the Buddhism. I compare just like a house, that need a solid foundation in order to be strong. So also do the other Buddhist vehicle or the path needs the solid foundation that the Theravada can provide. And then now we can go a little deeper in the school of the Theravada. Let's take a look at individual liberation. That has been a really topic, the principle of the Theravada school of the Buddhism. We start building up this foundation by focusing on ourselves. Consequently, the Theravada path is an individual journey of the discovery and the freedom. We face the confusion and the difficulty in our life. We try to identify the cause. And then we're trying to uproot them by practicing the skillful means of the path, such as doing no harm, behaving a wholesome manners, and training the mind to the process of the meditation, for example. So as this aspect of the Theravada are mastered, while the Mahayana aspiration to guide on the sentience, not individual, but all sentient being to enlightenment become possible. So without first putting our own house in order, however, we will not be able truly to help others, right? That is very natural principle. So we start putting our house in order by cultivating what is called renunciation. This is the first principle in the Theravada school of the Buddhism, or we call it nekkamma, renunciation, renunciating. So let's take a look at what renunciation works. So actually, this is the heart of the Theravada path, I would say. The renunciation means it means that we clearly look at how we are doing, how we are living our life, and that what forced our life. That force our life to drive. The great insight of the Buddha was really normal life that pervaded by a dukkha or suffering. So his perception was that everything is in a state of perpetual change, that nothing lasts. And so holding on things as if they are solid or permanent bring us nothing but dissatisfaction or unhappiness or even pain. So what we are renounce are our unhelpful and habitual way of doing things because they cause suffering. Instead, we try to live our life in more realistic way and conscious way. That will allow us to develop the wisdom or the panya and the metta and compassion. Do this. We do this by the process of what we call sarana, taking a refuge. Now we can talk of taking a refuge. This is the way in which we formally become a Buddhist. When you are called a Buddhist, you have to make sure that you taking a refuge. For me, myself, I did that 49 years ago. Now I am running on my 56. So thinking back of 44, I took refuge for my ajahn in the province of Ayutthaya. He was my mom's meditation teacher. So my mom took me to the same temple that he took refuge, and he put me in front of her teacher. So me and my mom sharing the same teacher who taking a refuge. That was 45 years ago. So I consider myself as a Buddhist by taking a refuge. This is what we call it belief. Actually, it's a belief. The first indriya, the first spiritual power is belief. So this is the way by which, the one who become a Buddhist. And the refuge is laid the foundation for all that follow on the Buddhist path, which I am on. The notion of the refuge is one of the seeking guidance and inspiration as we're traveling on the path to enlightenment. It has been a really strong support for me and for us, actually, as we purify our mind, limiting the pattern and cultivating a wholesome qualities. We take a refuge in three different things. The first one in the Buddha. The second one in the Dhamma. The third one in the Sangha. They are often referred to what we call it the three jewels. Why is it three jewels? Because it's rarely seen, and it's very precious gift for a human being. that one can take on. So let's take a look at the first refuge, which is the Buddha. The first thing that we take a refuge is the historical Buddha himself. Since he was the one who achieved the enlightenment, he showed us how he get enlightened, which by the ordinary people, because he himself is ordinary people. So we took him as a role model and inspiration to help us along our own path towards the liberation from the cycle of birth and death, or we call it the samsara, the sangsara, or the suffering, the cycle of the suffering. And the second refuge is the Dhamma. The second thing that we take a refuge is the Dhamma, which is the Buddha's vast and very profound body of the teaching. Initially, these teachings are really a methods that we have to simply learn and apply to our life as best as we can. But as we practice them and integrate them into our daily experience, the Dhamma become a really clear, vivid. I would say that it's become an The third refuge is the Sangha. The third thing that we take on is the Sangha, which is the ideal, or maybe called a noble community of the experienced and committed Buddhists who have been helping to preserve the Buddha teaching or the Dhamma throughout the age, right down to the present time. We seek a refuge in them to provide the support and the guidance as we practice the Dhamma. For example, myself, I learned the Dhamma. I learned how to meditate from my Ajahn, from my meditation teacher, both in India and in Thailand, and two of them in Japan. Ajahn Visoyaku, he's my Zen meditation teacher, and he also a friend of my mom's. So that teacher that we learn from can be considered as a realized being, the one who have attained the unshakable insight into the true nature of the mind. That can be considered as a realized being. So later on, after we taking a refuge, what is the next process in the Theravada school or the Buddhism in terms of the practice? The first one is the ethical conduct. Once we have taken a refuge, we commit to living our life according to the certain ethical guidelines. In this respect, the Theravada is also called the path of details that we spend close attention. We cultivating the discipline, the ethical conduct. In building, we need to take careful attention to the detail of the construction. Otherwise, the whole structure will be unstable or collapse. Therefore, once we have committed ourselves to the Buddhist path, we build this strong foundation by living our life according to the principle of not harming anything, any living beings, and perform a wholesome action whenever possible. For lay practitioners, these ethical guidelines are based on what we call it kusala kamma, or the 10 virtues, which they apply to our action of the body, speech, and mind. I think everybody are familiar with the kusala kamma, or in Thai we call it kusala kam 10. Yeah. Let's take a look in detail of kusala kamma, because it's under the ethical conduct. First one is a physical action, not intentionally killing any living beings. Instead, we saving and protecting life, not taking things that not belong to us. Instead, being generous with our wealth and possession, not engaging in the sexual activities that cause harm to ourselves and others. Instead, we maintain a healthy sexual relationships. So this is how we improve, how we cultivating the physical action or wholesome actions. And then about speech, we're not telling lie. Instead, we're speaking only truth, speaking truthfully, not saying things that will provoke discord amongst other people. Instead, we pushing up quarrels caused by slander, not speaking harshly, negatively to other people. Instead, we speak in a kind of gentle manners, not engaging the idle gossip, or I don't know what English called, chatter. Yeah, it can be used the word chatter. Instead, talking in a meaningful way about the valuable topics or the worthwhile topics. So this is all about the speech that we practice, that we cultivate, the good speech, the noble speech, what you can say. And then for the attitude of the mind, being envious of the properties and position of others. Instead, will join in the good fortune of others, not resenting others for their happiness and good fortune. Instead, we cultivating a loving kindness and thinking only their benefit, not holding incorrect view about the true nature of things. This is very important aspect as far as the attitude of the mind concerned, such as the law of the karma, cause and effect. We maintain the tolerance of the author's philosophies, for example, and the religious tradition, while we still adhering to one's own, So this is what we call the path, the first topic of right after we took refuge in the Buddha and Dhamma and Sangha. And then, actually it was there already in the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutra, which is the first sutra that the Buddha delivered to the first 5 disciples soon after his enlightenment. The next one that we have to get ourselves access to is called the Four Noble Truths. The Four Noble Truths is a central teaching of the Theravada vehicles. This is the first teaching that the Buddha delivered after enlightenment. It's referred to the first turning of the wheel. I hope everyone here used to read the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta. He mentioned this in the first turning of the wheel of Dhamma. Why? Because it represents the first phase of the Buddha teaching. It is called will. Because it itself is the means of traveling on the path to the destination, what is called enlightenment, in very much the same way that the will enables a vehicle to move along the road. That's why he called the will. I would like to review what the Four Noble Truths are. The first one is the suffering exists. This truth means that everything is and in a state of continuous change. What I mean to say is nothing is truly satisfactory because nothing is lost. If you're looking at this truth, you will find three aspects to this truth. The first one is the actual experience of the suffering, such as feeling pain or any sort of discomfort. And the second aspect is the suffering that comes from changes, from the impermanence nature, such as nothing getting what we want, or we always losing what we cherish, what we care, what we love. It always we lose. It never stay with us forever. And the third aspect is the suffering that comes with being alive and embodies. It is the suffering of being limited and so conditioned that can manifest in the feeling of the loneliness, the feeling of lefting out, emotional sadness. So this is three aspects of what we call the suffering exist. The second noble truth is the Buddha said suffering has a cause. So this should explain that underlying cause of the suffering is nothing else but attachment. Attachment to the sense of me, to the perception that we are individual separation from everything else, this belief, I underline, this belief causes us to feel powerful desire, aversion, and confusion. I always translate the word moha, not delusion, but I love to translate it as confusion. State of mind that you you cannot decide whether to go left or right, either to pause or continue. That is called confusion. And I think it's very good for if you interpret the moha as a confusion, not a delusion. You can really feel like that. As a consequence, we grasp onto things and become identified with them. But because of everything is impermanent and ever-changing, we inevitably suffer and loss. Otherwise, we feel very strong aversion towards something that try to push it away. But because everything is impermanent and ever-changing, at some point we are forced to confront what we dislike, and this causes us suffering. This cycle of the suffering and being bound to our pattern of aversion and attached is called nothing else but samsara, or a cycle of a conditioned existence. From moment to moment, from lifetime after lifetime, we really perpetuate this pattern of grasping and aversion, always attached to who we think we are. And in so doing, we repeatedly experience the dissatisfaction and sorrow. The third truth is the suffering. The Buddha said, suffering can end. So actually, this is the truth of the nirvana. To me, a nirvana described as free from suffering. And I think the Sariputta explained, Sariputta, as everybody here know, he's one of the greatest Buddha disciples. He interprets the nirvana as an extinction of a desire, the extinction of the hatred, and the extinction. It is a profound peace. Doing by mental activities, and attachment is over. Attachment to self is getting over. Then lastly, he pronounced that if there is suffering, if there is a cause of the suffering, And if there is a place where no suffering, that means there must be something that can remove, can destroy the cause of the suffering. So that brings about the path to end the suffering. And this should become what we call is the Noble Eightfold Path. I would like to review a little bit about Noble Eightfold Path because it's the most important teaching of the Buddha. And this is a very great will the Buddha mentioned. The Noble Eightfold Path is the essence of the middle way, the path between the extreme of self-indulgence and the denial. It contains the 8 interrelated aspects that make up the skillful living that the Buddha taught is very necessary to uproot the suffering and its cause. So that means the Buddha really emphasized the cause, not the result. And this is very outstanding point of Buddhism, that we are a religion of cause, not result. We teach, we were taught to uproot the cause of the suffering. This is the great become a really great belief, and this is bring about what we call it. Buddhism is a hetuka vata, the speaking of the cause, not speaking of the result. May I speak of the Buddhism is a religion of Kammavata. It is speaking of, it's a teaching of Kamma. If you want something, you have to cultivate the first thing. If you want, you cannot have a second thing without cultivating, without producing, without creating the first thing first. This is what the meaning of the hetuka vata or hetika vata. Hetika is a cause. Vata is a speaking or teaching. So the Buddha teaching about the cause. There must be always the cause of rising. There must be always the cause of falling. So this become a great logical teaching of the Buddhism that sounds very simple. And this is actually bring about when you go deeper to study about the Paticcasamuppatta, or English term we call it dependent origination. This had been originated from the hetuka vata of the Buddha teaching. So Buddha himself really emphasized the teaching that can uproot the cause of the suffering. When you can uproot the cause of the suffering, it means you cut off the chain, the cycle of the conditioned existence. that we can talk on the next topic, dependent origination or the links. I would like to little move on to the Noble Eightfold Path that comprise of actually three essential of the Buddhist training. The first one we already talked about. There is the ethical conduct, and then the mental development, and the last one is wisdom. You will see that if you look at the Noble Eightfold Path, you will see the word right view, right intention. The word right means the skillful and wise, or we call it samma titti, samma sankappa. Titti is a vision or will. The right will, the samma titti, the right will mean a skillful and wise will. Same way with the samma sankappa, a skillful and wise intention. That what I want to underline. That's why I want to point out what the right that the Buddha mentioned. Accordingly, the Noble Eightfold Path. So for the ethical conduct that comprise of three aspects: the right speech, right action, right livelihood, and for developing the mental, or we call it mental development, a right effort, right mindfulness, a right concentration, samadhi, and finally he have another two component of the wisdom. That is the right view and the right intention, as I mentioned actually earlier. So this is he delivered the tools to end the suffering. Also, he mentioned further that the very root of suffering is self. So if you scan into the Four Noble Truths, attachment to the fixed sense of self, while the liberation inside of the Buddha was that what we take to be me is merely label that we apply to our changing experience of the body and mind. It is not who we really are. In essence, me is actually illusion. The view of no self or anatta is what distinguishes the Buddhism from other major religions. If you take a look in detail, if you have noticed teaching from different schools, I mean from other religions, this is the main difference from Buddhism to another religions. So we tend to see ourselves as being a single, permanent, and independent personality. That if we examine our experience more closely, we will see that our thoughts and feelings are changing all the time. One moment we're feeling happy, then something happened, we're feeling different. We're feeling sad. Then someone distract our attention, our mood shift again. We are used to thinking of this constantly shifting process as me, as a fixed entity to whom these things are happening. From the perspective of the Buddhist philosophy, however, there is no fixed entity called I. Instead, I is simply a label that we apply to this continuous flow of the physical sensation and mental phenomena. It is not something separate that we can experience it. The problem comes when we behave as if there is a single permanent self, base our life around this assumption, and we become emotionally attached to our own sense of self. We are then at odds with the way things are. Everything that we identify with as I, my body, my feeling, my thought, my life, all of these things are composed of many physical and mental processes that are actually interconnected and changing moment by moment. So our assumption of me is actually being single, permanent, and independent is simply not true. Everything is actually composite, changing, and interdependent. So this mistaken perception is the fundamental cause of the suffering. And this mistake is called an ignorance, avijja. From avijja, all other form of suffering spring up. In the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutra, the Buddha also mentioned about where the suffering occurs and where a suffering ends. That is called five aggregates. The physical or the mental process that make up our ever-changing personalities are classified into groups called aggregates, or we call in Pali is khandhas, or actually in Sanskrit. Let's take a look at the five aggregates that I believe that all of you knows about it, but I just want to review very quickly. The first one is a form. In Pali, we call it rupa, and feeling is vedana, perception is sanya, mental formation or fabrication, we call it sankhara. The last one is consciousness, vinyana. Take a look at the first aggregate. The forms comprise the material elements of our physical existence. This includes our sense faculties and their object. The feeling of pleasure, pain, or neutrality arises when a sense of faculty make contact with an object, such as hearing beautiful bird song and feeling happy. The perception is a recognition of the sound and naming it. When you can name it because you heard it before. For example, when I identify what kind of bird is singing, the mental formation are the thoughts and emotions that arise in relation to one's feeling and perception. For example, when you're thinking, I would like to get up every morning and listen to the beautiful birds singing. Consciousness is what links the sense with their object and enable us to have awareness of them. And according to the sensory organs, or we call it ajatana, there are 5 consciousness that pertaining to each of the 5 senses of the sight, sound, smell, touch, taste, and the consciousness that pertaining to the mind. So this consciousness coordinates input from the 5 senses and experience through the thought and the feeling. When the 5 aggregates are working together in combination, we develop the idea of me as someone who is doing, for example, seeing, feeling, thinking, and so on. But this is merely mental construct. It's very much the same way as we are developing the idea of the stream. When we see a drop of water that aggregated together, it remains that this is just an idea, a mental formation. And what is really, there are simply the 5 aggregates working together, nothing else. The karma or the karma, although on the ultimate level, self is an illusion. We experience the self at a relative or everyday level that happen because of ignorance and the karma. When we fixate on the sense of me, we then perceive everything else as other than me. And our way of relating to things is very conditioned by this separation. This is the meaning of ignorance, actually, I mentioned. This sense of the separation causes us to develop the feeling of attachment and aversion. We then act on this emotion, seeking to be near things that we like, pushing things away that we don't like, and we ignore the rest of the thing. In Buddhism, this cycle of the action and result, we call it karma. Furthermore, Buddha taught that if we act in a unskillful way, we experience the suffering. And if we act in a skillful way, we experience a happiness. I would like to review the 12 links of interdependent origination or Paticcasamuppada. The 12 links describe in detail how the process of the karma works. According to this teaching, the life that we are now living is not something that we has just happened by itself. It is not a one-off experience. Instead, it is a part of ongoing process of action and result over many lifetimes. Our current life has been more in the way it has because of things that we did in the former life. In the same way that we are doing now is shaping what our next life will be. So Buddhism, this is called the process of interdependent origination, meaning that things originated from each other and depend upon each other. A life process is going on the time and is unbroken. We are the way we are now due to how we act in the past. Depending on how we act now, we are shaping our future actually. So this circular ongoing process is often compared to a wheel of the Buddhism, compared to the wheel in Buddhism. So you see, if you examine into the first teaching of the Buddha, which is called Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, what he actually explained from the beginning of his teaching, you can conclude it into a wheel of Dhamma. And that wheel, it turns around and around and around, become a circular, become a cycle. And that's what he called samsara or samsaravata. So the process starts with the ignorance. As he mentioned, as its deepest cause is really a root cause of suffering. Because it's in the ignorance which caused the mistaken perception, you see, sanya, the mistaken perception of the reality that happen when the mind contracts around the sense of what? Sense of me. Then the separation of me from what is cause all the suffering. When you were the ignorance present, it turn on, it switch on the process of becoming, or we call it phava or pop in Pali, which is made up of the 12 links of the independent origination. So this process is actually the force which propel a sentient being through a samsara or a samsaravata, that taking birth from time to time in different realms of the existence. What are the 12 links? I would like to begin with the ignorance produce the karma. The karma, I call the sankhara. Actually, if you look at the 12 links, it's saying that ignorance is the cause of the sankhara. Actually, if you scan into that sankhara, itself is a karma. It's a law of cause and effect that produce the next one, that is consciousness, that again produce the forms, and the form produce the senses, and the senses produce the contact, and the contact produce a feeling. The feeling produce a craving produce a grasping or attaching, and attachment producing a becoming or phava or pop, and the pop or a phava or becoming produce a birth, and birth produce eventually aging and death, which call the suffering. This starts the cycle of the existence over again by producing a state of unknown, which is we call ignorance. So this is the core idea or the conceptuality of the school of the Theravada that construct the very first teaching that in form of Pali right after the Buddha dead, and then the group of the 500 monks began to convent and make a collection of the Vinaya and the Dhamma, which is what I explained was that the core, that including both the Dhamma and the Vinaya. So I don't know how much time do I have.
Oh, you have about 2 hours. However, it's been hour and almost hour and a half, so you might have a little bit time.
So I'm trying to go a little faster in Mahayana school of the Buddhism. I like to go straight in the conceptualities of the Mahayana school of the Buddhism. Well, let's me begin with the Mahayana is known as the great vehicle because of its great motivation of the cultivating loving kindness or compassion equally for all living beings. So it is actually often associated with the one that I used to experience and sharing my own idea and receiving a new idea from the Zen Buddhism in Japan when I was there last time. I mean, I was there for 1.5 years. So it has a concept of the what it called Pure Land tradition, but it also the inner heart of the Tibetan Buddhism. Mahayana is the path of the Bodhisattva who see the emptiness of all phenomena and to free all living beings from the suffering and lead them to complete enlightenment. The Bodhisattva does this by cultivating the great compassion. I think this is the idea, the main conceptuality of the Mahayana school of the Buddhism. The concept of the Bodhisattva offer strongly to me, to myself, it really offer me the idea of that make me clear about a rebirth or the reincarnation. That if you really study on the life of the Bodhisattva, then you have a really clear idea of who you are and who you going to be in the future. And you can design your life. You can able to shape out your future because of you understanding the cycle, the life cycle of the Bodhisattva from the Mahayana school of the Buddhism. That was really benefit me, that I can bring a knowledge of Mahayana school to my knowledge of Theravada that really construct a very clear idea of reincarnation. There are three main concepts of the Mahayana that I scan to. The first one is the idea of the Sunyata, an empty, and talk in detail later. I will go over the three conceptualities first. And then the second one is the idea of Maya. Maya means the reflection. Everything that we are experiencing right now, we're having a husband, we're having a house, we're having a children. One section of the Mahayana saying that it's reflecting. It's a result of reflection from your mind. And that section of the Mahayana, or this conceptuality, is called Vichayawat. It is speaking of the mental reflection. And the third conceptuality from Mahayana school, the idea of the perfect universe. They call it the universal mind. That we can discuss later on in detail. It has been really much talking on the topic of the great compassion in the school of Mahayana. But in the Theravada, there's one thing that I want to point out. The school of the Mahayana, they call the school of the Theravada the Hinayana. Hinayana means little, smaller. Even though we're not accepting that we are small, but they call us, when they look at us, they call us the Hinayana. Are you accepting with it? But it doesn't make me any, yeah. But anyway, they call it. I prefer the word Sawakayana better than Hinayana. Sawaka means the disciples. Yeah, the vehicle of the disciples refer to the first 500 great disciples that coming together, that gathering in the first convention or the first Sankhayana, the first Buddhist council. So those 500 disciples called Sawaka. Yeah, so I really do prefer this much better than Hinayana or whatever. So they call us the Hinayana because they call us Hinayana a little or smaller vehicle, because they consider that we are only freeing only oneself from the cycle of conditioned existence or the samsara. But Mahayana path go much further. It's not enough to free oneself from the suffering and attain the peace of the nirvana. We are dependent on everything. That's what they thought. That's what they believe. We are dependent on everything else that live, just as free, just as a tree that rooted in the soil and depends on the rain and sunshine to grow. Similarly, we are connected to all of life, like us. All the living beings want to be happy, yet they suffer in innumerable ways. So when we're traveling on the Mahayana path, we open our heart to the suffering of all living beings, that makes commitment to help, leading them to the enlightenment. So this is the meaning of what is called great compassion in Mahayana school of the Buddhism. Before we can do this, we need to find stability and the clarity within ourselves. We need to establish a solid foundation of the discipline and ethics in our life, and practice a calm, abiding meditation in order to settle our mind. In other words, we first need to lay a foundation by adhering to the basic practice of the Hinaya, of the Theravada. Once we can have this done, then we become ready to begin treading the path of the Bodhisattva. So that is a very core idea or ideology of the Mahayana. Let's take a look at the Bodhisattva. And accomplished Bodhisattva are those who have come to understand the essence of the suffering, perceiving that is neither solid nor real. They are free from all negative emotion and have awakened the power of wisdom and compassion within themselves. An example of the high bodhisattva that I used to listen to my Achan in Japan is Shaleng-sik, who embodies the idea of the universal compassion. He vowed to delay his own full enlightenment, to remain in the world in order to work for the benefit of all beings. In contrast, Theravada practitioner withdraw himself from the world. That is confusion to find the solace and peace. In the same time, the Bodhisattva fully embraced the world and its confusion, acting in the variety of the skillful way to help others, but it's not seduced into believing in the reality of the worldly experience. So the Bodhisattva are able to do this because they have realized the empty of the nature of all phenomena. So the first ideology that embody the school of the Mahayana is the idea of the Sunyata, that they approach and then they got access into the Sunyata. The emptiness or a Sunyata. In ordinary life, we take ourselves to be something fixed. We take ourselves to be something fixed and permanent. The thinker behind our thought. This is the really rooted idea. It is a central point of reference around which our life revolves. We then identify with our changing thoughts and feeling and call them mine. Theravada view of no self, however, show us that self is an illusion. It does not exist. Instead of it being an entity is its own right. The one who experience our life, ourselves, is simply a label that we apply to our constantly changing experience. The problem is we get fervently attached to the label. But in truth, there is nobody behind our thought and feeling. They are just the experience themselves, which are moment by moment interplay of the different mental and physical process. Mahayana will deepen this understanding. The second turning of the wheel of the Dhamma that the Mahayana scripture, which is, he mentioned it, the second main phase of the Buddha teaching, look at the nature of the reality itself, according to the Heart Sutra that I went to for the second time. Everything lacks true and in independent existence. Not only our sense of self, but also a mental and physical process that make up a me and my world. This is the meaning of emptiness in the Mahayana Buddhism. The emptiness does not mean that things are blank or not existent, but it means that all things are interconnected and depend upon one another for their existence. Everything that exists is made of many other things. So when we take a look for the essence of something, it's very unique characteristic that we cannot find it. It just breaks down into smaller and smaller parts. In other words, things are empty of their own existence. So this is very core idea of what I call Sunyata that I want to bring about. Let's take a look at the next topic that I found in the Heart Sutra. No, actually, it happened in one of the most popular sutra in Mahayana. It's called the Vimalakirati Sutra. Yeah.
Hey, Josh, Kong here. Sorry to interrupt you. If I just want to keep track of the time because we have another 20 minutes.
Okay.
And there could be some questions coming from the chat group, which I hope that you can actually answer. I know you actually covered the three topics a little bit with a lot of emphasis on the Theravada Path. Do you maybe you can spend another 5 minutes to close off and wrap it up? Maybe allow another 20 minutes for the people in the chat group for Q&A.
Okay.
Yeah, is that okay?
Yeah, I think I can do that.
Thank you. Thanks, Josh.
Yeah, maybe the last topic that I want to bring it up is about the relative and the ultimate truth, which is a really main topic of both Mahayana and the Theravada. So this is the ultimate truth. Everything that exists in an expression of everything else. All of life is interconnected and nothing exists in its own as a separate entity. But things still appear and whatever we do still produce a result. If we throw a pebble in a stream, it causes a ripple. If we do something bad, it comes back on us bad. If we do something good, that comes back on us good too. This is the law of the karma that everybody understood, which is the function according to the immutable principle of cause and effect. So this is what called the relative truth, actually. It is the way things work in everyday life, which is different from the ultimate truth. is the way thing that really are, and relative truth is the way thing that appear to our everyday life perception. So these two truths work together and do not contradict each other. When we practice the Dhamma, we need to keep them both in mind, especially when you are a meditation practitioner. When we live our life, we are mindful of how we act, since consequences flow from our action, the relative truth. But at the same time, we maintain our awareness that whatever is happening and whenever and whatever we are experiencing is not a solid, not a real, but it is open and spacious like a dream, ultimate truth. These two truths are really expressed in the notion of the bodhicitta, which is the main practice of the bodhisattva. Yeah, I think I should stop at this topic because I already bring up the main idea of the school of the Buddhism. Yeah, and maybe we don't have enough time to go on the school of the Vajirayana school of the Buddhism. Maybe next time if we have some special occasion coming together and we can go in detail of the Vajirayana. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you, George. Thanks for covering the topic. I know this is not an easy topic given that having to explain the different schools and whatnot. But we have a question here from Alice. As we all know, the ultimate goal of Buddhism is actually to end our cycle of suffering and to achieve nirvana. How do you see these three different schools of Buddhism? Do they have the same path that is ultimately leading to nirvana? And if so, is there any differences on the path to achieve the nirvana?
Thank you for the question. The goal of the Buddhism is only one, Kong. The goal of the highest goal, or the only one goal of the Buddhism is a nirvana or the nibbana. But the path, the way to the destination is different, and that's how the different school of the Buddhism occur. So if you take a look into your consideration of, for example, when you have one house, you may have two doors to get into the house. You may have a back door, you may have a front door. You can get into the house both either coming from the front door or coming from the back door, but you will be in the house. So that means the three schools of the Buddhism, for example, the Theravada is one door. The Mahayana is a second door. And if we explain about the Vajirayana, it's a third door. And the different doors have different explanation of how to get there. For example, in the school of the Theravada, we try to meditate to get through the process of insight meditation to free our mind to be in a state of nibbana. That if you can free from the rupa, you will be free from the nama or the mind. But you do for yourself. But for the, which is different from the school of the Mahayana, that they trying to carry everybody, because they're thinking that on everybody, either animals or non-animals, the human being or sentient beings, have been together. You may be, you in the past life, I may be a dog. And that's why the Mahayana school or the Buddhism practitioner are not eating a meat. I might be one of your father. That's why the Bodhisattva, they do not eat. They become a vegetarian. So the school of the Mahayana thinking of everyone is interconnected. Maybe in the past life and maybe in the future life, if you are not carry them on into one place called the Pure Land. By go to the Nibbana in Mahayana school of the Buddhism, you have to be stopped at the Pure Land. I compare the Pure Land like a resort, when you are on vacation. You are feeling very happy when you buy a ticket, a package tour, and they put you in the resort. So the resort is as a Pure Land to prepare yourself to go to the next stop, which is the last stop, the Nibbana. Yeah. So that means you have to do a lot of work in the past, in the present, and also maybe in the future if you are not reaching the destination. Because you have been really, your life is not alone. Your life has been involved with many, many people, many, many animals. That's why in Mahayana, besides they have a Patimokkha Sila, they also have a Bodhisattva Sila that you have to spend ongoing practicing the Bodhisattva Sila. For example, not eating some vegetable like onions, garlic. Yeah. So the destination is the same. The Nibbana is the same. We have a same goal. We have a same destination. But the way to go, there are three ways at least: Mahayana, Theravada, or Vajirayana. I think I do answer you, right?
Yeah, maybe just a follow-up question to elaborate a bit more on the Mahayana part. I think throughout the conversation, you mentioned the word Bodhisattva very often for the Mahayana. So this question is a clarification on Mahayana. That is it true that the Mahayana advocate a lot more to become a Bodhisattva rather than becoming fully enlightened? So that they can stay on and continue to help others continue on that path. So if that is that's so, right. It seems like the Mahayana is holding on to the idea of a permanent self, and therefore the question is that we're not sure if this is there would be the whole separation of the different schools of Buddhism, because one is more to become fully enlightenment. One is to advocate to continue to be achieving that bodhisattva and continue to stay in that cycle to continue to help people. So how is that differences?
The practice to become okay. Let's clarify that the goal is the same. It's a nibbana. The ideology of to become enlightened is little different. the ideology of become enlightened and get themselves and get to the nirvana or the nibbana. For the school of Theravada, we contemplate in the three characteristics of all existence, which is anicca, dukkha, anatta. That's what we contemplate on and get ourselves into the state of emptiness, which is anatta. The nibbana itself is anatta. But to get to the nibbana, you focus on contemplation of the anicca, dukkha, anatta. And idea of the Theravada get into the nirvana, which is different from the school of the Mahayana. Mahayana school of the Buddhism is contemplating on the emptiness directly. Without contemplating through the anicca laksana, dukkha laksana, or anatta laksana, but directly contemplating everything is just illusion, and actually not illusion. Everything, if you scan down into all things, you will see everything is sunyata. And that's how they get into the emptiness. When you contemplate everything as a sunyata, you will see that thing is empty. When that thing is empty, your mind has no object to contemplate. So the forms is disappear because you contemplate that it is empty. That means your mind has no object to contemplate anymore. When the object disappear, your mind disappear. This is the phenomena of the emptiness, or what is called sunyata vada, which is explained by the great teacher called Nakalachuna during I think about 560 years after the Buddha died. Mm-hmm. So this is the core ideology of two different schools regarding the how to get to the nirvana. But then the practice is also different. In order to achieve that contemplation of the sunyata, you have to make your body pure. You have to make your mind pure enough in order to get into that pure contemplation of the rupa and nama by cultivating the six paramita, which is I like to mention a little more: the generosity, the ethics, the patience, the diligence, the meditation, and the panya, the wisdom. So this is six activities that you have to perform in order to purify yourself, to become a great bodhisattva, and then you are in the pure land, which is you are yourself ready for you're not going to miss the nirvana when you stay at the pure land, because you're performing the generosity, the discipline, the patience, the joyful or the diligent, and the meditation. And last one is you purify your wisdom. Yeah. But in the school of the Theravada, we have the Traisikha. Yeah. So the path is different. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Sorry, I just want to elaborate, and I see that always that I feel that there is we as a Buddha teachers, we have to be anatta, no I, mine, and me. So, but I see in terms of you separate the school in Buddhism, you have Theravada and all this. That is already they are not practicing the anatta because, this is my Mahayana practice, my Theravada practice. So I think this is like creating the conflicting argument between even the Buddhists. You say you are teaching, promoting the Buddha teaching that no self. We don't want to have Mahayana. I'm Theravada and Mahayana. So these are how to solve this. I don't think this is like in the right path. In the right path of what Buddha want to pass on, that no self.
Yeah.
All are the same Buddhas. No matter, you don't segregate that this Theravada, this Mahayana, this Vajirayana. So that is my view.
Yeah, I do agree. I do agree, Alice, because actually, if you're looking at the core teaching of our school, we are sharing the same teaching of the Buddha. Yeah, but as I mentioned, when you want to go to London, you may fly, you may ship, but you're going to reach London. Yeah, so if we really looking at the core teaching of the Buddha, you will understand, you will be clear that because we are different. Why we are different? Because we did something different in the past. So we have to do more work in order to reach London. You may able to buy an air ticket, but I may not have enough money to buy an air ticket. So I have to ship, because what I did is different from Alice did in the past. I don't have much money, because everybody having a different karmas, either bad or good, or even best or good or better karma. That's how the Buddha said the karma differentiates the people. So the different karma produce a different kind of people. That's why the different people walk on this path in order to arrive the same destination.
Okay, then
I never blame not only in Buddhism. Yeah.
I just want to know, in 2,500 years ago, when Buddha enlightened and they do the Buddha teaching, do they have this kind of Theravada school, Mahayana school, have this segregation of this? I don't know. Is it because of the evolution, human, that, after 3,000 years, okay, they make it, this is Theravada, this is Mahayana. Attachment. I practice Mahayana the way. I practice my Theravada. Actually, this is against the Buddha teaching that we don't want to attach to, okay, I want to practice my way. That's why I'm really confused at why the evolution of Buddha teaching can make into so many schools, that segregate I and mine.
That's why the great teaching of the Buddha is about the deep root cause of the suffering. Is actually what Alice is saying, the I, the sense of I, the sense of mind, and then we attach to that because we thinking that we are. Actually, we are not. Yeah. So back to the question that during the Buddha time. Let's narrow the term. During the 45 years of the Buddha life, there is much more conflict amongst the different beliefs, and very, very strong conflicts that against the Buddha himself, and not only against the Buddhism, but amongst the Brahmins, the old Hindus, they themselves having a very strong conflict because of the different interpretation the ideology, the different vision, and the different action, the different behavior from one place to another place. They have their own culture, they have their own tradition. So this bring about how the belief has been different and has been branching out more and more, not only after the Buddha died, but during the Buddha life also. There are a lot of conflicts, and this is always when, I remember in one sutra, in many sutra that you will see, you will heard that a monk or the Brahmin, when they saw a monk walking by, they will ask that, who is your teacher? Right, Alice? If you look in many sutra, that means they always attached to the Acharya. Who is your teacher? They will ask. So that means the sense of I and me, especially when you study a lot of something, especially about the belief, is creating sometimes more and more a sense of I, my, especially we call it ahankala, manankala. The sense of I, the sense of my, the sense of me are getting bigger and bigger, because maybe you try to compete, you try to taking over someone idea, because you have that, you're thinking that my knowledge, my teaching. Yeah, that's I would like to elaborate in that way.
Okay, thank you, Alice, for the question. I think this is a very relevant question today. I think every day we have so much information, we have so much exposure to what we hear and see. As a lay people, I can understand that it's not easy, because we would have our own interpretation, we would have our own belief. But at the same time, I think it still goes back to the Noble Eightfold Path. I think we sometimes have to use our wisdom to filter out what is appropriate, what is not appropriate. I know It's not an easy task. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really do agree with Kong. Actually, not only for the lay people like us, even for the monk also, I do believe that they also coping a lot of difficulty. Actually, maybe their problem is really bigger than us, Yeah, because they like sometimes we get slipper from the path, but they are on the path that if you miss the path in one particular single minute, you get caught up, you get noticed, So actually, it's really hard for us have to really control ourselves, because we don't have really like, for example, the Patimokkha, we don't have the Bodhisattva Sila, we don't have a Samanera Sila like in Mahayana, that they have tons of something that control over. And that sometimes they feel really pressure, Kong. Yeah, much more than us sometimes. Yeah,
absolutely. I think a lot of time as human, we focus on what is our differences. But my belief is that let's focus on what is our similarities, whichever school you are. The similarity is our ultimate goal is to achieve the enlightenment. The similarity is about doing good. The similarity is about the sila. The similarity is about the Four Noble Truths. So I think we need to shift our mindset to focus on our similarities. What is bringing us together rather than our differences. So that's what I would choose to think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. the similarities of on the different school of the Buddhism, we are sharing actually the dana, sila, and bhavana. Yeah, we sharing all these things. Either you mention in terms of the 6 paramita that appear in the Heart Sutra, or the Prachaya Paramit Sutra. Yeah, if you shorten, it come down to the same thing: sila, samadhi, and panya. Gong.
Okay, good. Any more questions from anyone? I think it's a good discussion and conversation for us to reflect
yes,
on.
I would like to ask
Yes, Ben.
one question.
Go ahead.
I understand that there are many sects, even within Mahayana. And I also believe that, as you say, there are central beliefs that are so similar and so very valuable to all of us.
Mm-hmm.
But is it true that some of the Mahayana sects have a different view of the Buddha, placing him as more of a God figure than the Theravada? I understand the Buddha to be a great teacher who advises us not to take his words as given truth from a deity, but more of as a training, a teaching that we should evaluate and use. So my question is, are some of the sects in Mahayana change the view of the Buddha to more of a omnipotent, omniscient, godlike figure?
Yeah. Yes, Ben, right? Yeah, thank you, Ben. Well, actually, if it has been long happened during maybe like the first year after the Buddha passed away. I found this change is really common, Ben. To me, it never distract my mind of what is teaching. What I emphasize is maybe I am really in the very area of practice, Ben. So I found myself that if I put myself into the practice, I saw the teaching of the Buddha without pay any significance in what it was cool or the Buddhism teach. And honestly, Ben, I think that is what I understood is the natural religions, that one must not manipulate, The Buddha teaching is very so natural, so nature, that I do agree with Ben that nowadays the religion is a man-made. Actually, if you don't agree, I apologize. But to me, I saw this in my own meditation practice, that I saw the truth. I contemplate. I know what is the Buddha mind or the Buddha nature. In the physical Buddha, it doesn't mean the historical Buddha. To my perception, I found that I know the meaning of the Buddha does not refer to the physical body of the Buddha. And I thought this is the idea, the core idea of the Buddha get enlightened. I don't know if if you agree with me, if you put yourself in really serious practice of the practice, you will find something, you will have some different view from the literatures, from the scripture. Yeah. But I do agree with you that many things has been changed, but if you accept the thing that has to be changed as it is, as the nature of all things is changing and leading to the suffering, because if the Vinaya is changing, the Dhamma is changing by a different interpretation, and that causes you suffer, But if you allow the thing change, even the teaching, the Vinaya change, then you don't have to change your perception because you practice. Yeah. I don't know if I answer you, Ben.
Well, thank you. Yes.
Okay. If there are no more questions, can I ask Dr. Thanat to have any closing remark or close off with the Triple Jam? Dr. Thanat.
Okay, thank you very much, Khun Jackris. You give very clear and understand Buddhism in aspect of Theravada and Mahayana. Unfortunately, we don't have time for the Vajirayana.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I spend more time, a little bit more.
You can cover very clearly in the three yanas, three circle. We have to connect together. Right now, in the West, people are really interesting in Mahayana and Vajirayana because of they came to the state or to the Europe, the first pioneer to propagation Buddhism. So for our Theravada just came to America 40 years ago, officially, especially when we have the Council of Thai Bhikhuss in U.S.A. Samacha Song Thai, established in 1979. And now on we have 115 temples under the organization. So we try to work together and try to give the right path to the local, especially local people who are interested in Buddhism, in Theravada, especially from Theravada from Thailand, because we are Thai Buddhist missionary monk. So at this time is a good time to propagate Buddhism through social media because of the pandemic of the coronavirus, and we can connect to each other to give the Dhamma talk and join the meeting, join the seminar. So after this program, I have to join the opening of the International Tibetan chanting. They're going to have opening in Oceania, Australia, New Zealand. So 18 hours different from America. Okay, anyway, so this week, that would be almost last one, because next Saturday, that would be the last week in our session. We have been joined together with the Dhamma talk from different scholar, different teacher, master, from both monks and laity, to give Dhamma and exchange the idea to understand Buddhism in different way, different aspect, but the same goal. The final goal is the liberation, Nibbana, Nirvana, whatever you call, but the final goal is to get rid of suffering as Alice, you have a good question today, Alice from Singapore. You asked why we have so many schools, have Theravada, Mahayana, Vajirayana. Okay, I can tell you one word, because of we have atta. So you have to practice anatta. Atta means that you attach to self or group or I or myself. It is my school, my nikaya, or my nation, whatever you name. That kind of thing is an obstacle of like a wall, the Great Wall. Luang Por Buddha That said that if you have so many walls around you, it's a great obstacle, more than the Great Wall of China, that you cannot reach to the Buddha Dhamma, you cannot reach to the heart of the Buddha teaching. So you have to destroy the wall. Means that you have to destroy atta, or yourselves, and then accept the truth. And because the Dhamma or the Buddha teaching is the ultimate truth. Then if we accept the truth is the truth, not regard with the nation, dressing, language, or ceremony. But truth is a truth. Like a fire is a hot, ice is a cold, something like that. So the Dhamma or the Buddha teaching is the truth. We have so many schools, so many ceremony teacher or master, the way of practice, so many in Buddhism, because of we have so many streams come from different direction, Even in the time of the Buddha, after Buddha passed away, the idea split into two groups, Mahasankhika, and that group that split idea, of the interpretation of the teaching in different way, in different aspect. So when they have their idea, then they follow their idea. Then the Nikai arises. Nikai or school happen like that. And after that, they cannot follow because it falls into the impermanence. And then it's come together again, After Buddha passed away, it's split into 18 schools at those times. But it cannot exist because of some teaching, some practices is against the rule, against the law, the universal law. So, and then they become together. Right now, only that we can call only three schools. That's the Theravada way of the conservative way of practice, like us. And then Mahayana school spread into China, Japan, Korea, and North Vietnam. And now they spread into Europe and America, everywhere. And another one is Himalayan mountain school that we call Lama school or Vajirayana school. Practices in Bhutan, Nepal, or in the Himalayan range country. But anyway, the final goal is to get rid of suffering and to liberate yourself from suffering. That's the ultimate goal of Buddhism. Okay, thank you very much for your experience, your knowledge to share with us tonight. On behalf of the Council of the Thai Bhikkhu, I'd like to thank all of you, especially the speaker today. I wish you be happy, healthy in body and mind. And at this time, I'd like to pay respect in the Triple Gem. อะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธภะคะวาพุทธังภะคะวันตังอะภิวาเทมิสวากขาโตภะคะวะตาธัมโมธัมมังนัมมัสสามิสุปฏิปันโนภะคะวะโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนะมามิ
สาธุค่ะ